The tyrant Klaus Mikaelson, the mad hybrid who's done nothing but despicable things in the Vampire Diaries series, all because he had the power to do so. From daggering his siblings on every small disagreement, to killing hordes of witches, abducting and sacrificing loving families, or even experimenting on other supernatural creatures, Klaus has ultimately been chalked up by many people as simply evil. But after watching the Vampire Diaries series 2 times over and recently finishing the originals, I have come to the realization that Klaus was not evil at all in the slightest, but instead only a broken child who's been that way for a long time. Now that might sound like an insane statement, but just hear me out. Klaus is undeniably a bad person. It doesn't matter how broken he was, the bad things he's done cannot be overlooked. But the fuel behind his bad wasn't a cuckoo for Cocoa Puff evil like most people think. It was only trauma. From being tormented by the man he called father for thousands of years, to family betrayals, even from his own mother, I believe all of these traumatic childhood events was the single thing that molded him into the villain we see today. As crazy as this might sound, I imagine if Klaus was raised differently, then he wouldn't be the Klaus we see today, but instead a more kinder and gentler version. Now I'll say it once more, Klaus was never evil. Bad yes, evil no. Yet for me to prove this, I'll take you back to his upbringing so we can understand the trauma that broke him and how it affected his character to the version we see now. So sit back and let me cook. Before he was a Hybrid King, he was just a Klaus, a boy who, according to Elijah, was full of life and just wanted to be loved. But love was something he was never going to get. His entire life was defined by 2 huge betrayals that built the foundation for the monster he would become. The first was a constant abuse from Michael, the man he thought was his father. Michael was insanely cruel to him, singling out for beatings and verbal abuse. He saw Klaus' artistic side as a weakness and beat him to make him quote-unquote stronger. But in truth, it was for the simple fact that he was son to another man. And that's when the second betrayal came into play. The second betrayal came from his own mother, Esther. She's the one who had an affair with a werewolf, which made Klaus an abomination in Michael's eyes. To hide what she did, Esther gave him a magic necklace telling him it was for protection. In reality, it was a spell to make him weaker, suppressing his werewolf side.
You turned me into the weakling he hated! Look at me! You rant and you rage about the monster I have become, but you, Mother, you are the author of everything I am.
Then everything changed. When Esther turned them all to the first vampire, she sealed his fate. The moment Klaus got his first kill, his werewolf gene activated, and everyone found out about his mother's affair. Michael, in a complete rage, hunted down and killed Klaus's real father. Then Esther, terrified of what a true hybrid could do, put the hybrid curse on Klaus, locking away half of his entire identity for millennials. In one single moment, he was rejected by his quote-unquote father and hunted down to be killed, cursed by his mother, and turned into a monster unlike anything in the world. He was a vampire to the werewolves, a werewolf to the vampires, and an abomination to his own family. That feeling of being totally alone created a wound so deep it would define the next 1,000 years of his life. The boy named the Klaus was gone, and the monster, Klaus, was born. Every single monstrous thing Klaus did for the next thousands of years can be traced right back to that trauma. His villainy wasn't about loving evil. It was only a set of brutal defense mechanisms made from fear, designed to make sure nobody could ever hurt him like that again. His entire personality was built around one goal: control. Take his infamous habit of daggering his siblings. On the surface, it seems like the cruel power move, but in reality, it's really a symptom of his crippling fear of being abandoned. His siblings were the only ones who knew him as a human, the only ones who understood his pain. The thought of them leaving was so terrifying that he'd rather have them in a box by his side than not at all. He didn't want them gone. He wanted them to be physically incapable of leaving. This shows us that even though his actions were cruel and despicable, they didn't come from an evil origin. See, the difference is, if he was truly evil, it would be him taking great sadistic pleasure from daggering his siblings, doing it not out of fear, but because he could. This fear also explains his obsession with making more hybrids. For 1,000 years, he was the only one of his kind. His whole quest to break his curse wasn't only for power. It was a desperate attempt to build a family that couldn't reject him because they were literally a part of him. Also, building an army that could stand by his side whenever need be, since the trauma of being hunted down by the man he called father weighed on him so heavily. This is why he went into a volcanic rage when Tyler Lockwood turned the other hybrids against him. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was also one of his deepest traumas playing out all over again. You also had his reputation. The over-the-top violence and cruelty that made him a legend, I believe, also acted as his wooden shield. He learned from Michael that kindness was a weakness and fear was power. So in result, he built up this terrifying persona so no one would ever get close to see the broken man underneath. He wanted everyone to see him as the monster, because if you're the monster everyone's afraid of, no one can see the part of you that's afraid. It was all a facade in reality and result of his dear father. For centuries, the monster was all everyone saw, but every now and then that armor would crack and we'd see glimpses of the real Klaus. These moments are crucial because they prove the monster was not only a construct, but also revealing to me that Klaus was not at all evil. Let's take him and Caroline Force for instance. She was a young vampire who just refused to be scared of him. She saw the pain behind the rage and wasn't afraid to say it. She challenged him and she saw a man worth saving when he was only showing the world a villain. Her ability to see the good in him actually brought out his humanity, leading to moments where he showed genuine compassion, something someone who was truly evil would never do. Then you have Camille in New Orleans. With Cammy, Klaus did something he hadn't done in 1,000 years. He tried to be understood. He compelled her to write down his story, but it quickly turned into therapy. Cammy diagnosed his trauma with perfect accuracy, forcing him to truly face his past. For the first time, I believe he felt like someone actually understood him. Their relationship was a conscious effort to heal, a sign that he didn't have to be the monster his father created. Furthermore, with all the betrayals and daggers, his loyalty to his family, that always and forever vow, was the one glimmer that he never really let fade out. His love for Elijah and Rebecca, even when it was twisted, was the foundational emotion of his entire immortal life. All of these things ultimately proved that Klaus was not in fact evil, but simply broken, and had very broken ways of going about things due to his upbringing and the beliefs he gathered due to that upbringing. But the real turning point, the event that 1000% led me to know he wasn't the evil monster, was the birth of his daughter, Hope. At first, Klaus saw the baby as a weakness, but that changed extremely fast. In Hope, he saw a chance to get the one thing he'd always wanted: unconditional love. He promised that his child would never suffer the way he did under Michael, and that promise became his entire reason for living. Fatherhood completely transformed him. The guy who only wanted power just to have it now wanted to build a safe world for his daughter. His love for Hope guided all of his actions and forced him to face his demons. He made real sacrifices, chose to endure agony to protect her. He even sent her away, which pained him, just to keep her safe. This wasn't a temporary change. It was a real sustained effort to be a better man because his daughter gave him something more powerful than fear to fight for. His final act was the ultimate proof of his transformation. To save Hope from the Hollow's dark magic, Klaus took it into himself, knowing it would destroy him. In his last moment, he wasn't the feared hybrid king or the vengeful monster. He was a father making the ultimate sacrifice for his child. The man who spent the millennia running from death willingly walked towards it to save the one person who was his hope for redemption. This character development led to one thing for him: the ultimate realization that Klaus was never a purely evil hybrid running around conquering for the fun of it. Only a broken man who did the bad things he learned from trauma in order to feel the wound it left behind. So in conclusion, Klaus Mikaelson was definitely a villain. There's no denying the centuries of pain he caused, but he wasn't born evil, nor was he evil. He was forged into a monster by unimaginable trauma. His cruelty was just the language his wounds taught him, and his rage was a shield for a broken boy who just wanted to be loved. His entire life was a fight against the trauma that left him broken since childhood. From his need to control his siblings to his obsession with creating hybrids, every move was a cry from the pain of the wound left behind. The birth of his daughter Hope finally gave him the one thing that could heal him. And in the end, his sacrifice proved that the monster was never evil, only broken. That's all I got for y'all. Until next time.